Hello everyone. In this class we shall study to factorize a quadratic polynomial by the middle term splitting method, and we shall discuss the rules and the shortcuts so that the middle term splitting becomes more easier and it takes less time and you can complete it within 2 minutes, the entire writing and doing it everything in 2 minutes. Alright, that should be the maximum time that we need to factorize a quadratic polynomial and write it down. Alright, so for that you need to see the problem. What problem do we face while doing a quadratic polynomial? For easy polynomials, for example, x square minus x minus 6. Now this can be easily factorized, right? This is quite easy. The numbers are minus 2, minus 3 and 2, right? And why did I say minus 3? Can you say? You could have said minus 2 also, but I said minus 3. So these are the things that the rules will teach you and tell you in a fastest way to get those two numbers which on adding becomes the middle term, and on multiplying becomes the multiplication of the constant and the coefficient of x square. Okay, so let's try it, and I will give you two problems to do so that you see what are the difficulties that you face while doing the middle term factorization. Okay, so the first one is 12x square minus 101x minus 35, and the second one is 12x square minus 43x plus 35. Okay, so you need to pause the video. The first one is very easy. If you follow the rules, it is very easy, and sometimes without following the rules also you can just tell the first one. Anyway, pause the video and try to do both the problems and see how much time do you take to do the problems. Okay, I hope you have paused the video and you have tried it and you have seen the problems, and if you could do both of the problems in less than 2 minutes, then you are an expert in factorization and you don't need to probably see the video. And otherwise you just look into the video and follow through the class nicely and try to focus on each point. And obviously when the rules will be said to you at the first point, you won't become an expert to it, but when you apply it eventually, the rules will be ingrained in yourself that you will not even understand how, when you have used the rules and the solution was in front of you. Now that things becomes with a little bit of practice, but the rules will definitely help you to at least solve the problems. For example, if you notice the first rule, okay, before the first rule I need to say you two things. Try to take the coefficient of x square as positive, because if it is negative, say for example if it is negative, you can take a minus common and all the signs here will become positive, matlab it will change, alternate signs, and then you can factorize inside the bracket. Okay, but here we have taken it positive only, so nothing to do. And the second part is, if there is a factor common to all the three terms, then take that common out and then factorize inside the bracket. Now that is the first two things that you need to do, and after that the other rules. These two rules are commonly known. Now see the first one. Here you have the sign of the constant. That is the first rule. You need to look at the sign of the constant. The sign of the constant is negative. That means both the roots will be opposite in sign. That is, one will be positive and the other one will be negative. and in this case you have the sign of the constant as positive. That means both the roots both the numbers will be negative or both the numbers will be positive. Okay, now that gives you the sign of the roots. Now that is also helpful, and I will tell you how. For example, as I told you, x square minus x minus 6, I could directly tell you the signs of the roots. How could I say? Now you could ask me, I assigned minus to 3 and not to 2. Why? Because it was x square minus x minus 6, and here this middle term had the negative sign, hence the numerically bigger number will have the sign of the middle term. So if you notice here, you have minus 101. That means in this first case the negative number will be numerically bigger, and in this case both the roots will be negative, because this gives that the negative number will be numerically bigger. That means one number have to be negative, and as I told you, the sign of this constant tells us that both will be positive or both will be negative, because it is plus here. Hence if one number is negative, then the other also have to be negative. So you get that clear? So what does the constant's sign tell us? It tells us that whether the roots will be positive or negative, or both positive or both negative. So if it is negative, I am just repeating, then one will be positive, one will be negative, and if it is positive, then both numbers will have the same signs. So what are these both numbers? These two numbers that we need to find. Let us first describe the first problem, and then we shall go for minus 43x 1. First problem we shall discuss it. Okay. So you are being told that you need to find two numbers which on adding or subtracting gives you minus 101, and you need to these two numbers again on multiplication will be equal to 12 into 35, right? And the sign of 35 is minus, so minus 35. That is what you are being told till now. But how do we get these two numbers? Now you might start guessing those numbers, but there are better ways to do it, and that is why those rules and shortcuts. So what is the sign of the constant said us? That the numbers, one will be positive and one will be negative. That means the difference of this two number will be equal to 101. The difference of this two number, because they are in opposite in sign, hence the difference. So you can imagine that one number will be negative out here, say minus b, and the other number will be positive, and minus b will be numerically bigger than a, right, the positive number, and a into minus b will be equal to 12 into minus 35. So now you can multiply 12 and minus 35 and check what is the number. If the multiplication is easy, this is also a tip only, if the multiplication is easy for you, multiply it, and if the multiplication is tougher, then you can just factorize 12 and 35 separately. For example, let me just erase it. 12 and minus 35, right? So let us ignore this minus sign, we shall not write it now, and let us factorize 12. So that is 2 into 2 into 3, factorization of 12, and for 35 it is 5 into 7. That's quite easy. So the we did not need to multiply 12 and 35, right? 12 and 35, however, the multiplication is 420, and let us just factorize 420. We could have factorized this also, and we can say that how many factors are there. As I told you in the previous videos, that we can tell how many possible factors will be there. So let us look into those factorization thing. Okay, so here you have the factorization of 420. So what do you see here is, how many factors do we have? Possibilities 24 factors for 420. How did we get? Here we have two 2's, so this 2 comes here and we have to add 1. There is 1 3, so this 1 comes here and we have to add 1. Similarly for 5 and for 7 we are adding 1 and then we are multiplying it, and we get total factors as 24. So 24 factors are there. That means there are 12 such possibilities which will give us 35 into 12, that is 420. 12 such pairs will be there. 24's half is 12, right? So how many pairs will 24 factors have? 12 pairs, right? One pair have 2, so 12 pairs will have 24. So since there are 24 factors, there will be 12 pairs. So since there will be 12 pairs, I have written those pairs separately. These are the pairs 1 and 420, then 2 and 210. If you multiply 1 and 420, you are going to get 420, and 420 is what? The multiplication of 12 and 35. We get 420. So 1 into 420 is also 420, 2 into 210 is also 420, 3 into 140 is also 420, and similar we have 12 such pairs. So what are the factors? These 12 numbers and these 12 numbers all are factors of 420. So below, what I have done is, I have taken the sum of this 1 and 420, which is equal to 421, and I have also taken the difference, which is equal to 419. Now why I have taken this sum and difference? Because the sign of the constant, it was 35, right? The sign of the constant was minus, and it tells me that one number will be positive and one number will be negative. So when a positive and a negative number are being taken together, that means we have to do the difference, and hence the difference. And if it was positive, then it would be both negative or both positive, right? So what if both negative numbers are taken together? We add them, right? Like minus 3 and minus 4, we add them, it becomes minus 7. And if there are positive numbers like 3 and 4 taken together, we add them, that becomes 7. And for if there are opposite in sign, for example plus 4 and minus 3, then the difference of 4 and 3, which is equal to 1, right? And we put the sign of the bigger number. So that is why we are taking the sum and a difference. Now since the sign was negative, so we only need to consider the sum part, the difference part, right? So in difference part, you can directly see 101. So what will be your number? Your numbers will be 4 and 105. But do we need to write this 12 cases and all the sum and differences? No, never try to do them. Okay, it will take a lot of your time. You will be able to do it, but it will take a lot of your time, so never attempt to do it. Okay, so how do we get it? What is the easier way? So let's see on the easier way. Let me erase it. So we had the middle term as minus 101. This was our middle term, 101. So the first thing that you need to do is look for a number which is close to 101 in this block. You have 420, you have 210, you have 105, you have 35 and 7. You can look for them, these 5 cases, or if you have a number which is very close to these 5 numbers, things will be much more easier. For example, you have this 101 which is close to 105, right? Let me erase this part is not necessary right now. Okay, so you have 105 which is very close to 101. So you need to consider, so in which step does it occur? It occurs, 105 occurs in this step. So you consider the numbers above this step, you take them together. So in this step 105 occurs, hence you take the numbers above this step, that is 2 and 2. So 2 and 2 becomes 4. So 4 and 105, and we need to find the difference, right? They are opposite in signs. So what is the difference of 4 and 105? It is 101. So you could do it easily just from the factorization of 420, right? But if we didn't do the factorization, then how would you do it? Then things will be different. So sometimes the multiplication and then doing the factorizations becomes easier, that is 12 into 35 you multiply it and do the factorization, and sometimes we don't need to do the factorization when the number of factors is less. Okay, for example 6, the number of factors for 6 is 2 and 3 and 1 and 6, right? So for them it is very easy to calculate, these are small numbers. So we could simply factorize it. Our numbers will be minus 105 and plus 4. So middle term will be minus 105x and plus 4x. Why did I give minus 105? Because the middle term is negative, hence the numerically bigger number, which is 105, is numerically bigger, and it have to be negative. The numerically bigger number and the sign of the middle term are same, right? So we can directly say that it is minus 105 and 4x. So how much time would it take for us to do the factorization? 15 into 35 is quite easy to multiply. 12 into 35 is quite easy to multiply. I have taught you the multiplication technique for 12. If you don't know, or if you know the multiplication of 12, the table, then also you can do it. It is quite easy. So the next part, you need to understand that why this was possible, and can we do it for other numbers also or not. Check if the number was something different, say it was something close to, the possible numbers are these only, these are the possible numbers, the difference, right? These 12 numbers are the possible numbers. So if the number was say 208, then do we have a number close to 208? Yes, 210 is very close to 208. So in this step 210 occurs, hence you need to consider the other number 2 and 210. So 2 and 210 gives you 420, and the difference of 210 and 2 is 208. So we could get 208 also. So is it clear? So for how many numbers is it possible? It is possible for 5 such numbers in this case. One for 420, like above 420 occurs in this step. Which number do we have here? Nothing, right? Nothing is there above it. So don't write 0, that would be 1, because 420 can be factorized by 1 also, and then we'll get 420. So that 1 comes here. Anyway, avoid it. That one thing will be more easier if I tell you the other rule. Alright, when that 1 comes. So for 420 you can do it, for 210 you can do it, For 210 you have to consider with 2. For 105 all the numbers below that we don't consider, and we need to consider the other one. For 35 you can consider all the step numbers from this step will not considered, only the above one will be considered, 2, 2, 3. And for 7 also you can consider it. Okay, if you have a number close to 7 then also you can do it, but do you, okay. So let's see how many cases are already gone. So this pair 1 and 420 can be easily seen from here, 2 and 210, then 4 and 105 because you have 105 here, right? And then you can go for 35. Where is 35? This one. So 35 and 12, that is also gone. And then you have 7. So if you take 7, so what will be left? 60. 7 and 60. How do you get 60? Can you check? This 2 into 2 is 4, into 3 is 12, into 5 is 60. So 7 and 60 will give you 420. So these are all possible cases. So these 5 cases will be quite easy for you to calculate by following these rules this much. Now see, if the middle term has 1, okay, so let me just write the equation. For example, x square minus x minus 6. So in the middle term we have 1, right? That is minus 1 or plus 1 doesn't matter, it is 1. First of all we look at the signs, that is so done only. But if you have 1, so what we need to do, just multiply these coefficients. Now this coefficients multiplication is 6, and you need to consider which two perfect squares are there between which 6 occurs. So the perfect squares are 4 and 9, right? 6 occurs between 4 and 9. Or instead of writing this like this, you can also say that 6 occurs between 2 square and 3 square. So the numbers will be 2 and 3. Let us try for another number or another quadratic polynomial, whether it is true or not. Okay, so instead of 6, say if I write 56, you can factorize it, right? X square minus x minus 56. Now since there is a 1 out here, can you say me the number which it would be? So 56 is between the square of which two numbers? It is between 7 square, 7 square is 49, and then 64, 64 means it is 8 square, right? 8 square. So the numbers will be 7 and 8. Now what will be the sign of the numbers? 8 will be negative and 7 will be positive. So ultimately it will be minus 8x and 7x. So if you split the middle term, you will get minus 8x and plus 7x. Quite easy. Let's look out for a big number. For example, if it is 420, just now we did about 420 only. So if it is 420 and we had 1, how do we do it? 420 comes between the square of 20. 20 square is 400, right? So 20 square is 400. So it lies between 20 square and 21 square. That is 21 square is 41, 441. So hence the numbers will be 20 and 21. And you can check out here this 20 and 21. What is the difference you are getting? The difference you are getting is 1, right? So whenever you have the factor the factor 1 in the middle term, 1 as the coefficient, whether it is plus or minus doesn't matter, then you can just use this technique. You need to see the multiplication of the coefficient and the constant. For example, this number 12 and 35, you know it is 420, right? So 420 came between which two number? 20 and 21's square. 420 came between them, right? So 12 into 35 is between 20 square and 21 square, right? I am not just writing the number here, 12 into 35. So what shall we write here? After splitting, it will be 20 and 21. What will be the sign? It will be minus 21. Why? Because the sign of the middle term is negative. Hence, the sign of the numerically bigger number will be also negative, and the other one will be positive. Why positive? Because you have a negative sign here, which says that one will be positive and one will be negative. So already we have given one as negative, the other one have to be positive in that case. So as you see, out of this 12 cases, 6 cases are already done. It could be visible in front of our eyes only very easily, right? So we are left with the remaining cases, remaining 6 cases, and we will do one example that I gave you. It was what? 12x square minus 43x plus 35. I said plus 35. That means plus 35 means both the sign will be same, right? Let me write the equations. Let me pause the video and so we have the equation 12x square minus 43x plus 35, and we have to factorize it by splitting the middle term, which is minus 43x. So what was the first rule? This plus 35 tells us that both are same sign, both the numbers have to be same sign, both negative or both positive. Now this negative sign tells us that the bigger number, numerically bigger number, is negative. That means both cannot be positive, both have to be negative. So both are negative numbers, and we have to sum up to make them 43. So summing up and making 43, what does it tell? This is also important. What does it tell by when two numbers are sum up and we are getting 43? It means that both the numbers have to be numerically smaller than 43, right? Only then the sum will be 43. Secondly, if the difference is given, that means one number have to be numerically bigger than the other, the result, right? Like for example, earlier we had 101, so we got 105 and 104. So 105 was numerically bigger than 4 because we had to take the difference, right? So here both the numbers will be less than 43, both the numbers will be negative in sign, that we shall assert later on. But you have another thing to look from the middle term. You notice 43 is a odd number. 43 is a odd number, and now try to recall what is odd plus odd. Odd plus odd is even. What is even plus even? It is even. But if it is an odd number and an even number, we add them, then it will be odd. So one number have to be odd and the other number have to be even. By looking at the middle term 43, we can say that one is odd and the other is even. Okay, so there are two numbers which are smaller than 43. Till now what details we have? We have two numbers, both negative. The sign we shall put at the last, so forget about that now. Then both of them will be smaller than 43, and one will be odd and one will be even. So since one is odd, that odd number will not have 2 as a factor, right? So you notice here that you have two 2's. So these two 2's will not come in the odds place. Say this is the odd one and this is the even one. We have to group these numbers. We have to group these numbers and place them in this odd block and this even block and then multiply them, right? So 2 and 2 will not be present in the odd block, because if any 1 2 is present, that number will become even. So in even you will have 2 and 2, right? So that is certain. By all the rules that we followed, we could directly write that 2 and 2 will be together. So now we have to sort out only 3. Now see for the next step. If you see for the next step, you will see that this orderly of 3, which is there are total 6 possibilities, you don't need to do 6 possibilities, and it will be shortened into only 2 possibilities. So try to check it. Here this 3, 5 and 7, if you take it together, then that will become 105, but this number is 43, and what is the number left? That is 2 and 2, that is 4. So 105 and 4 will never be close to, whether you add them or take the difference, it will be never be close to 43. So 3, 5, 7 will not come together. So one number from this, at least one number from this 3, 5 and 7 at least should come in this block, right? Which number will come, that is, or which 2 numbers will come, that is the case. Now try to recall, you can take one number only. Why? Because if you take 3 and 5, it will become 15. 15 fours are how much? 60, and 60 is greater than 43, right? So that also won't be possible, because both the numbers are less than 43. Similarly 5 and 7, if you take 35 and then you multiply 4, so obviously that will be more than 43. We don't need to do the multiplication, we can just look at them and just say. So we need to select only one number out of 3, 5 and 7. So obviously if you take 3 also, then also you have to think of the previous case. Since where we took 105, when we took all the 3 numbers together, it became 105, and hence it could not become. Similarly if you take 5 and 7 together, then it will become 35, and 35, what is the remaining part? This is 12. You know that 35 into 12, you already have 35 here, so 35 into 12, so that is kind of obvious thing. Hence you have to take a number which is not 3, and out of 5 and 7 only one number you have to choose. Okay, only one number. So first you try for 5, then you try for 7, and then check it. So 2 into 2 into 5 is how much? 20, and 7 into 3 is 21. Obviously the sum of 20 and 21 is 41, so that is not possible. So the last case which is possible is you have to give 7 here, and you have to give the remaining 2 numbers. What are the remaining 2 numbers? 3 and 5. So 3 and 5. So 3 5 are 15, 2 into 7 is 28. 15 and 28. Now look at this block, 15 and 28. It gives you 43, right? So 15 and 48 for 28 will give you 43. And what will be the sign? Sign of 28 will be minus 28, right? Now as I said, both were negative, so minus 28x minus 15x. So this problem, if you approach it like this, I mean, okay, the explanation I have been explaining you, hence we have taken so long, but when you follow the rules and you try to do the problem, just multiply and do the factorization, and then look on the factors and what are the possibilities. Just when your brain will start working on these rules, you can do this factorization in less than 2 minutes only. Okay, the first day it won't be possible, so write down the rules. First you need to look at the sign of the constant, and that tells you what? That if it is positive, then both roots will have the same sign, both positive or both negative. If it is negative, then the roots, not roots actually, the numbers will have negative or one will be positive, the other one will be positive, and we have to take the difference. The sign of the middle term tells us what? The sign of the numerically bigger number will be positive or negative. The sign of the middle term and the sign of the numerically bigger number will be same. Then if the middle term is odd, then all the 2's will go to the even number part, because when the middle term is odd, one number will be even and one number will be odd. So all the 2's or the multiples of 2's will go in that part, and then you have to do the calculation. And if the middle term is even, then both will be odd or both will be even. Okay, and when the middle term is 1, then what do? That's squaring, perfect square. You need to see the product of the product of the constant and the coefficient of x square lies between which two perfect square, and those square root of those perfect square is your numbers, right? And if the middle term is 1 less or 1 more, that thing I have not told you, right? Yes, that part is left behind. For example, if the middle term here, it is very easy. If it is 1 less or 1 more, like if it is 421, it is 1 more than the multiplication of 12 and 35. 12 and 35 is 420, it is 1 more. So your numbers will be 420 and 1. And if it is 1 less, for example, if it is 419, then also your numbers will be 420 and 1. Okay, as you can see in this block out here. Otherwise you don't need to consider the factor 1. Okay, only if this middle term is 1 more or 1 less than the multiplication of the coefficient of x square and the constant, only then you need to consider the 1 factor. Otherwise that 1 factor is not necessary, only the other factor is sufficient. Okay, so that is all the rules and shortcuts that will take you closer to the answer, and using these rules try to do the factorization, and then you tell me whether it becomes more easier or not. Okay, thank you. And wait, the next class we shall be discussing polynomials.